So, do you ever wonder what happened to Makarovs' inner circle after the events of Modern Warfare 3? Probably not, honestly, but all these people that voted on the poll have, so I will be talking about it. I will be talking about their complete history, how they formed, to why they formed, and what I personally think happened after the events of Modern Warfare 3. Let's get into it. The Inner Circle was a Russian ultra-nationalist terrorist organization founded by Vladimir Makarov and based in Russia in Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3. They are the ultra-nationalist extremist splinter faction that sides with Makarov following the split of the ultra-nationalist party. The ideals of the Inner Circle are never discussed, although Makarov thinks the more conservative members of the ultra-nationalist party are weak and shouldn't be in power. They are shown to have fierce loyalty towards Makarov as their visionary and leader figure. They are believed to have been formed after the ultra-nationalist leader and founder's death, Imran Zakhaev. While the newly appointed president Boris Vorshevsky came into power over the mainstream party, extremists of the cause fell under the more charismatic ultra-nationalist Makarov, who took over charge and founded the Inner Circle. This faction used to commit various acts of terrorism not only against the new Russia under Boris Vorshevsky, but also against the various countries of Europe to inspire fear. Following the massacre at Zakhaev International Airport that was executed by the Inner Circle, the group took a backseat role to watch the chaos unfold as Russia went to war with the US. Meanwhile, a special operations unit known as Task Force 141 made it their mission to eliminate Makarov and his followers, or the Inner Circle, attacking the prime safehouse locations of the faction at the end of Modern Warfare 2 and inflicting a large number of casualties on the organization. However, they managed to stay standing and continued their zealous campaign 2 months later, when President Boris Vorshevsky planned to make peace with the countries of NATO. The group long since gained more power and support from the mainstream party due to Makarov corrupting a good deal of Russia's nationalistic politicians and top military generals into siding with him over Boris Vorshevsky. This also seems why they still have a good amount of power in Modern Warfare 3. Boris Vorshevsky's peace with the West was met with unpopularity by the Russian population, who still saw the war as a justified cause for revenge. Effectively taking complete control of Russia and launching a coup, the Inner Circle hijacked a personal plane of the president while he was en route to a peace summit with NATO in Hamburg. The Inner Circle forced the plane to crash land. The faction lost a number of men in the fight against the FSO forces protecting the president and his daughter, but ultimately captured Vorshevsky with the intent to force him into giving Makarov the launch codes for the nuclear warheads. However, Vorshevsky refused to give Makarov the launch codes for the nukes, prompting Makarov to send men to capture Vorshevsky's daughter, Elena.
Mr. President, we have to get you out of here! Where's my daughter? She's being secured, sir! We need to move you now! Get the president inside!
You know who I am?
Yes.
Then you know what I want.
You're insane.
Russia will take all of Europe, even if it must stand upon a pile of ashes. I want the launch codes, Mr. President.
You'll never get them.
Every man has his weakness. Find the girl.
All teams, the daughter is secured. Repeat, the daughter...
Makarov's plan for an invasion proved to be a success, his chemical weapons devastating capitals across Europe, crippling government organizations and military command structures severely.
22 Greenwich Mean Time. Chemical attacks were triggered across Europe.
I repeat, Downing Street is within a contamination radius. Over!
It's being called the worst terror event in history.
This is GIGN HQ! My men are dead or dying! I've been exposed!
This is Renamstein. We're under attack.
Roger, we are aware of the gas attack and are sending decon units your way.
Not the gas. We're under attack by Russian ground forces.
Say again, Ramstein. What Russian forces?
The entire Russian army! Request immediate assistance!
Eyewitnesses are now reporting Russian tanks rolling down the Champs-Élysées.
This was no act of terrorism. The attacks were intended to cripple our defenses and pave the way for an invasion. We need to hit them now with everything we've got.
Allowing Russia to take the majority of Europe in the early moments of the invasion before meeting strong NATO resistance with US backing. Makarov permitted his generals to handle the war while he focused on acquiring the nuclear launch codes from Vorshevsky in order to destroy the US and their involvement in the war, finalizing Russia's control over Europe. However, the Inner Circle ultimately failed when the remnants of Task Force 141 operated in conjunction with the American American Delta Force operatives to rescue the Russian president and his daughter from Makarov's diamond mine in Siberia. This meant the Inner Circle never gained the launch codes, allowing the president to openly pursue peace with the West once again, ending the conflict, and Makarov's coup was officially over.
Is holding a press conference with Russian Premier Vorshevsky to formally announce an end to the hostilities.
On this historic day, the representatives of two great nations stand before you united.
There's a simplicity to war. Attacking is the only secret. Dare, and the world yields.
A chapter in which we pursue peace.
How quickly they forget that all it takes to change the course of history is the will of a single man.
Our very existence.
Who's this?
Prisoner 627. I'm coming for you, Makarov.
Haven't you heard, Price? They say the war is over.
My war ends with you.
Like it ended for Captain McTavish? Tell me, Price, how long did it take him to die? I've destroyed your world piece by piece. It's only a matter of time until I find you.
You won't have to look far.
With Makarov's plan ultimately failing, he and the Inner Circle went to the Middle East to regain their assets and continue to plan. However, the score wasn't quite settled yet when the remnants of Task Force 141 pursued him, and Makarov's former friend and ally Yuri was along with Captain Price assaulting Hotel Oasis. Following conflict resulted in the deaths of the Inner Circle members present at the hotel, and while Yuri was killed by Makarov, Makarov ultimately died at the hands of Captain Price, ending the threat once and for all. It can be assumed that after the death of Makarov, the inner circle fell into shambles, and what members were still alive quickly fell apart, and Vorshevsky's ultra-nationalists remained in power. Now let's talk about some of the known members of the inner circle. Vladimir Makarov, founder and leader of the Inner Circle, killed by John Price in the mission Dust by Dust in Modern Warfare 3 by strangulation and hanging off the glass rooftop of Hotel Oasis. Victor Volk, status POW and CEO of Fregata Industries and a bomb maker for the Inner Circle. He was captured by the Delta Force Team Metal during the Battle of Paris. Alexei, status KIA, one of Makarov's lieutenants and commanders of the faction, killed by John Price in the mission Stronghold by Price throwing a pinpoled frag at him. Wadabi, status KIA, although not an official member it would seem, but he's kind of an associate of the Inner Circle through Volk. He was killed by John Price and returned to the center by Price shooting with a Desert Eagle. Alejandro Rojas, wounded in action / KIA, an associate of Makarov's Inner Circle, an arms dealer who was the one who supplied the weaponry used in the airport massacre, and can be killed by Gary Roach Sanderson in the mission The Hornet's Nest, but in my canon he's alive, so... Well, my canon doesn't even matter, he's just alive. This is a picture with him and Makarov walking around in Modern Warfare 3, and although Rojas isn't mentioned at all, this is clearly Modern Warfare 3, so I guess he's alive. And just like Volk, he's revealed to be the CEO of Fregata Industries, and I think that might just be an error in the canon, because if this guy is still alive, how is Volk even the CEO? This kind of just doesn't make sense, and it's not really explained. I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me, and I don't really care to talk about this. But he was the CEO of Fregata Industries, just put it like that. Now let's talk about all the no Russian guys. This is gonna be pretty easy, nothing hard at all, so let's get into it. Victor, status KIA, terrorist who assisted in the airport massacre but killed by the HVI in Arcadia in Modern Warfare 2. And these guys all die in the mission No Russian except for Victor and Makarov and Anatoly and whoever the fuck the getaway driver is. Anatoly and the getaway driver are just kind of fillers. They're not even really characters at all, to be honest, but basically just Victor and Makarov survive. Yuri, status KIA, former right hand of Makarov, double-crossed him and assisted the Russian loyalists in Task Force 141, but he was killed by Makarov during his last stand. Joseph Allen, alias Alexei Boldarin, status KIA. He was a CIA undercover operative who assisted in the airport massacre and was killed by Makarov himself to frame the US for the massacre. So after going over everything, I think the most likely scenario is that Makarov and a lot of the higher ranking guys being dead, it most likely dissolved. And what members were remaining were wanted as terrorists by multiple governments across the world. But also, I don't doubt that some of them would continue fighting for Makarov's cause as well, but would ultimately be crushed. And I did have another theory, but it just sounded like way too much of a reach, and there's not really any evidence behind it whatsoever, so it's really just me guessing and just having fun with it. But I just went with this because this is the most likely scenario. Thank you so much for watching.